Welcome back to Living East Tennessee, you guys. Well, this summer, protect your skin and be aware of how to prevent skin cancer. And here to share more information about this important topic is Dr. Savannah Kirkland from Summit Medical. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So this is such an important topic. I know I'm super guilty of being like, I'm just going to go out in the sun for 5 seconds or maybe go for a run without putting on sunscreen. But how important is it to always be aware of that prevention factor with skin cancer?
So skin cancer is one of the most common cancers in the world, and it's caused by sun exposure. So anytime we're expecting sun exposure, regardless of whether you're expecting 5 minutes or 5 hours, we really should be protecting our skin as best we can.
What are some of the most common types that you've seen personally within people in this region?
So there are really 3 types of skin cancer. So basal cell, squamous cell, and then I think the type that most people are most familiar with is melanoma. And those are the darker lesions that are more concerning and can actually spread to other parts of the body.
Absolutely. And I know it's so easy for us to overlook certain things or think, I've had this for so long, you know, there's nothing wrong with it. But what are some of those signs and symptoms of maybe something that does need to be checked out or looked at?
Sure. So any skin lesion that is changing, so if it's increasing in size, it's darker in color, you notice that it's more irritated or easier to bleed, if you notice that there's a skin lesion that's kind of coming and going over a prolonged period of time, then definitely get in to have it checked out.
Absolutely. Word of advice to people who might be at home being like, you know, I myself, I'm a hypochondriac, so I see something and I'm like immediately alerted. But how do you go through that process with getting it checked out?
Absolutely. So any primary care physician can perform a yearly skin check, and most will do that with your annual physical. But if you have a concern, simply calling and requesting an appointment and addressing that concern at the appointment is very easy.
That's fantastic. And what word of advice would you have for people getting out in the springtime, getting out in the sun? How can we best protect our skin from skin cancer, especially, does it run in the family, or is that kind of a factor with skin cancer as well?
So family history is certainly a risk factor. And in terms of protection, so number 1 is always going to be sunscreen with an SPF of at least 30. But we can also protect ourselves with protective clothing, so hats, sunglasses, there's UPF protective clothing, long sleeves, and then trying to avoid direct sun exposure between the hours of 10 and 4 p.m., as those are when the sun's rays are strongest.
Absolutely. From your personal experience, what are some of the things that you've seen, even within kiddos, I guess? You know, we're always trying to lather up the kids, get them outside, they're sweating. Do we need to keep layering on that sunscreen with them?
Right. So typically the recommendation is reapplying at least every 2 hours, but if you are swimming or sweating, especially if you're wiping your body off, then reapplying more frequently is recommended.
Absolutely. So what is your background in particular? Talk to me about what you do every day. I think it's so fascinating.
Yeah, so I am an internal medicine physician. So I see patients over the age of 18 over at Farragut Family Practice. And I like to say I'm a jack of all trades, master of none. So we do a little bit of everything.
Absolutely. I love that. Well, how can people get in touch with you, definitely, and with skin cancer and different things along those lines? Are you someone they can reach out to as well for those yearly checkups?
Absolutely. So we do perform skin checks at Farragut Family Practice. They are welcome to call and request an appointment with me. And if there's anything that we are concerned about, then we can certainly get it evaluated. And if we need to get dermatology involved, we can make that referral as well.
That's fantastic. And one last word of advice. Do you have a specific brand of SPF that you prefer as a doctor? Or
I tend to lean more towards Neutrogena just because I have more sensitive skin. So it works a little bit better. It doesn't have a lot of the chemicals that my skin reacts to. But everybody's skin is different. So if you find one that works for you, then I would say stick with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. Thank you so much. Well, thank you for joining us today and lending all of that information. And it's something so incredibly important to be aware of at all times, especially with this beautiful weather that we have.
Absolutely.
So, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Absolutely.